and between the subject comfort scores or willingness to undergo a repeat procedures. So deeper levels of sedation in general anesthesia was confirmed with both clinical and BIS monitoring. There was no, again, significant difference in diagnostic accuracy, and there were noted to be more complications in the general anesthesia group. There was also no relationship between high BIS scores and subject discomfort. So the BIS levels of less than 40 during a procedure was noted to be associated with increased complications. So can the results be applied to my patient care where all clinically important outcomes considered? Are the likely treatment benefits worth the potential harm and cost? So yes, the results of these studies can be applied to my patient care. So an adult patient undergoing bronchoscopy under general anesthesia. So this study involved adult patients undergoing diagnostic or therapeutic bronchoscopy with similar indications. So it could be a lung mass, an infection, or just for an airway evaluation. So as in our case, the patient is a non-ADP patient with increasing hemoptysis. So the findings can be applied to guide our choice of sedation for bronchoscopy. So for example, in anxious or difficult patients, long or complex procedures, situations where patient discomfort and immobility are priorities, general anesthesia might be the choice of sedation. But in cases wherein the bronchoscopy is routine, short or low-risk cases, conscious sedation remains effective and resource efficient. So subjective reports and proceduralist feedback indicated smoother procedures under general anesthesia, and in general anesthesia, reduced patient movement, coughing, or interruptions, leading to improved diagnostic yield and reduced complications. So there is also a more controlled environment in general anesthesia that allows a tighter control of the oxygenation, ventilation, and the hemodynamics. And also better procedural conditions, especially in longer interventional bronchoscopies. So for the discussion part of this journal, the study found that the patients undergoing bronchoscopy under general anesthesia reported higher comfort levels, but this is just based from the proceduralists and the nursing staff. So this randomized controlled trial compared patient comfort and procedural quality. So this study found that the proceduralists also favored the general anesthesia approach in terms of smoother and more controlled procedural conditions. But despite these advantages, the study did not demonstrate a statistically significant improvement in terms of diagnostic yield or clinical outcomes between the two groups. And additionally, there is an increased cost, staffing requirements, and recovery time that is associated with general anesthesia that limit its practically in routine bronchoscopy cases. So especially in those resource-constrained settings. So and also to add, one important limitation of this study is the lack of the blinding among patients, providers, and outcome assessors. Since comfort is a subjective outcome, the knowledge of the sedation method could have introduced performance and detection bias. And furthermore, while the groups were all matched at baseline and all patients were accounted for, the relatively small sample size may limit the generalizability of the findings, especially in diverse patient populations or settings that has different sedation protocols. So from a clinical standpoint, the results suggest that general anesthesia with a bispectral index monitoring may be justified only to those selected patients, again with those high anxiety, anticipated difficult airway access, or longer procedures. However, for the most standard diagnostic bronchoscopies, conscious sedation still remains effective and safe with fewer logistical demands. So for the conclusion, patient comfort with conscious sedation is still not inferior to anesthetist controlled general anesthesia for bronchoscopy, and sedation strategies should be individualized based on patient needs, procedure complexity, and institutional capabilities. So the results and recommendations are valid, yes. Are the results clinically important? Again, yes. And the results are relevant to my practice. If the base level po, if, at least 40 to 60 po, in general anesthesia po. If it's 100 po, the patient po is still aware. Base level po of 40 to 60 po. It means that the patient is under anesthesia. That, yes. General anesthesia. Sa table. Yes. Yes. That's my last thing.
Good afternoon, doctors. I'm Dr. Bustamante, third-year anesthesia resident. Here to report a case management on tracheal resection. So for my objectives, to describe the clinical indications of tracheal resection, to identify the urgent conditions precipitating emergency tracheal resection, to detail preoperative evaluation, to review surgical techniques and intraoperative considerations, to discuss post-operative surveillance, airway surveillance and support, and to evaluate post-operative complications and recovery. So for my case, tracheal resection po. Yes, ma'am. So, we have a 58-year-old female with a known case of thyroid mass, with a history of 6 months of his gradually enlarging anterior neck mass, associated with palpitations, VOB, and easy fatigability. As you can see, for the vital signs, those are unremarkable. For the PE, we have this anterior neck mass with a size of around 12 by 7 cm. consultant of the case noted that the trachea has been perforated during the neck dissection, since the thyroid neoplasm has already wrapped around the trachea. At that time, the vital signs of the patient was noted to be stable. No episodes of desaturation was noted. Also, for the mechanical ventilation settings, those were noted to be unremarkable. At that time, tidal volume was able to be reached and no leak was noted. Intraoperative referral to PCVS was done and they immediately proceeded at doing tracheal resection. Cross-field ventilation was then prepared. So for this report, I would tackle, for my case, the emergency tracheal resection, and on the sidelines, I would also input some information for elective tracheal resection. So for tracheal resection in general, these are the primary indications. Usually for benign strictures, most common is post-intubation injury. For tracheal neoplasms, second most common is for SCC and adenoid cystic carcinoma. And then to follow, trauma and idiopathic laryngotracheal stenosis. Benign strictures often are related to previous intubation or tracheostomy, whereas the most common malignant tumors include squamous cell carcinoma and such. So for my case, we could see that the primary indication of tracheal resection at the time was trauma, secondary to the direct extension of the tumor to the trachea. Sorry, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Opo. Opo. Down. So other than tumors, other clinical indications would be inflammatory lesions, and post-intubation lesions, post-traumatic stenosis, post-infectious strictures, burns, and connective tissue disease. Others would be compressive lesions and others such as sarcoidosis, relapsing polychondritis, osteoclastica, tracheopathy, and other idiopathic diseases. So for the preoperative anesthetic evaluation, which we do for elective cases, most important would be history and physical examination. So for the history of recent ET or intubation or tracheostomy, that would be helpful. And then we should ask for coexisting comorbidities, signs and symptoms of airway obstruction, tracheal deviation or extrathoracic compression, and for the range of neck movements and spine stability. So for these neck movements, it's important since the patient should be able to tolerate hyperflexion and hyperextension comfortably, since post-operatively, the patient would be subjected to hyperflexion of the neck. So I actually asked two services, TCVS and orthopedics, regarding possible tracheal resection in patients with cervical spine lesions. So as per other services with maybe ENT, orthopedics, and TCVS, some wouldn't actually go for tracheal resection unless cleared by all services, since the importance of, they would basically note that the cervical spine should be more stable before doing the tracheal resection. So they parang mas matimbang yung pagka-stable ng cervical spine than doing the tracheal resection itself. Okay. So others would be pulmonary function test. This testing will assist in predicting the post-operative intubation in the setting of severe pulmonary dysfunction. Also, radiological evaluation preoperatively. This is imperative to assess the extent of the lesion together with the exact length of the trachea that may be stenotic. Specialized linear tomograms, fluoroscopic studies, CT scans, and MRI. These very well provide better soft tissue detail and allow better visualization of the lesions by sagittal and coronal reconstructions. To check for vocal cord mobility, it can also be done by direct laryngoscopy or the laryngoscopy done by ENT. So lastly, we have for the preoperative evaluation, we can do bronchoscopy done under direct vision with rigid bronchoscopy, being the preferred method. This allows for the defining of the length and diameter of the tracheal narrowing as well as the character of the surrounding trachea. So for anesthetic management, in tracheal resection, the primary goal is to maintain adequate airway through maintenance of ventilation and oxygenation and easy clearance of blood and secretions. Us anesthesiologists must provide adequate ventilation and oxygenation to a patient with a preoperative critical airway, followed by an intraoperative transected airway, and finally, a post-operative airway that may be swollen and edematous due to multiple manipulations and also because of cervical section positioning. Over-sedation and CNS depression should be avoided. So sedation and actualisis needs to be properly managed as to avoid any form of respiratory depression and subsequent total airway occlusion. Anxiety, however, can worsen the respiratory pattern. So we can use some references would allow pre-medications with sedatives given that the patency of the trachea is there. Generally speaking, a calm and measured and caring demeanor of the anesthesiologist, together with a clear and confident sense of anesthetic and surgical plan, which is relayed to the patient, these are usually sufficient to allay any anxiety. Anti-sialogogues should be used with caution, such as glycopyrrolate or atropine, since the drying of secretions can cause a mucus plug that can obstruct an already tight lumen. These cases are specifically for obstructions of the trachea na po. As in preoperatively, may obstruction na talaga yung trachea, such as, direct tumors po, for example. So for the monitoring and equipment, standard equipments can be used naman po, such as ECG, pulse oximetry, capnograph, non-invasive BP monitoring, temperature monitors, and gas analyzers. So for the arterial line, however, it should be placed on the left arm so as not to compress. Once the innominate artery may be compressed, we may get a blood pressure reading that is inaccurate. So for intraoperative anesthetic management, since the surgery is divided into 5 phases, for us anesthesiologists, the induction, the open trachea, and the emergence are the critical and the most potential dangerous stages. So induction of anesthesia in these patients with compromised airways requires patient's planning and foresight. So patients with extrinsic compression of the trachea or critical airway lesions should be induced upright, preferably awake. If supine, deflate the thyroid bag under the shoulder to gain access. All pressure points must be padded, and those with a minor degree of obstruction can be induced with intravenous anesthesia, while those with significant airway obstruction, we can use volatile anesthetics po. Opo. Opo.
Paano pag intrinsic? What if it's within the lumen?
If within the lumen, sir, we must mas careful dapat yan kasi nasa loob na siya. Pag extrinsic kasi, usually compression lang yan. So if we can, yung nag-work yung sa gravity, ganyan. But if intrinsic po kasi, well, there's already an obstruction there to begin with. So based on my readings, pwede, mas okay pa rin daw po na away. Away pa.
Away.
Away pa rin, sir. Tapos parang mag-vary na lang between the minor degree of airway obstruction, mas preferably for most readings, mas preferable ang IV for induction if minor lang yung obstruction. Tapos mas they prefer gas induction for severe obstruction since mas mabilis daw po yung clearance kung volatile anesthetics. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. For induction also, muscle relaxants must be avoided before securing the airway. So, yung second line is just a step-by-step procedure na lang po. So, after adequate anesthesia, you can use direct laryngoscopy, apply topical anesthesia to the oropharynx and the glottis, and then you reapply the Venturi mask, and then you turn the volatile agent together with the O2 to deepen the plane of anesthesia, and then again do direct laryngoscopy, another topical anesthesia, and then do bronchoscopy. Yung sa akin kasi ma'am, this is ano po, parang in theory na lang. Theoretically ma'am, for patients planned to go under tracheal resection. Pero yung sa, ito kasi ma'am, yung normal lang po na induction, smooth induction lang ma'am, since emergency po kasi yung nangyari, emergency tracheal resection.
The case was an elective case of total airway.
Yes ma'am. Yes sir.
During the procedure,
There had been, yun po, yung nagkaroon ng tracheal resection ma'am, interoperatively na po. So it wasn't pre-planned. Talaga. Yes ma'am.
kasi we have a case last year naman ng tracheal mass. Last year, we have a case of tracheal mass naman siya. So, same case referred to me. Awaiting intubation. Initially, and we fentanyl, and then awaiting intubation. So, how do you decide what size of tube are you going to use pag intrinsic?
We can check for the, the radiographic, kung ilan yung diameter po.
Diameter of the trachea or diameter of the mass in the trachea?
Diameter of the open space pa po sa trachea. So,
Ano, regular lumen, regular tube, or armored tube?
armored. Armored usual yung ginagawa. So, for the maintenance of such cases, inhalational versus TIVA, pwede na, you can do anything naman po. But for this case, technically, inhalational anesthesia can be unreliable and may pollute the OR suite, the OR environment due to frequent tube changes and intermittent apnea. So, TIVA is basically preferable. So, for my readings, they specifically reiterated the use of both propofol and remifentanil infusions. So muscle relaxation can be used once the tube is already in place po, secured in place. This is to avoid movement or coughing during the procedure. And then standard maintenance na lang po. For the analgesia, maintenance of analgesia, this is highly dependent on the surgical approach of the patient. So we can use parenteral opioids if the approach is cervical, usually for upper airways po. And epidural or paravertebral analgesia for open intrathoracic approach if the transected airway is around the carina or the lower airways po. So for our case, for this case po, they did cervical tracheal reconstruction. So they did a low cervical collar incision and with the anterior dissection of the trachea. So they had careful dissection around the innominate artery and structures around the trachea. So the anesthesia is maintained by an oral EP tube prior to tracheal division. Okay na. This one. Ito po. So for this image, this one. So the red one, ito ma'am, ito usually, kaya di ba ginagawa natin yung tracheal resection is, yung most common cause niya is may obstruction doon or may mass. So yung red po, yan kunyari yung mass, yung occlusion doon sa trachea. So, ang gagawin po dyan, yung normal EP tube nyo na pang-induction, andyan, and then magre-resect sila under the mass, and then mag-i-insert sila ng sterile EP tube, as in sterile circuit, sterile EP tube na armored to ipapasok nila dun sa distal airway nyo. And then yun po, dun ililipat yung circuit natin, i-connect sa machine, tapos yun na yung magbe-ventilate muna. Until ma-anastomose ulit nila, kunyari matanggal na yung mass. Yan, natanggal na yung mass, ididikit na ulit nila yan. They will take off this tube, tapos yung tube na nasa taas, yung original niya, ibabalik nila pababa. So we have a video for that. Tibang pa din yun. With relaxant, ma'am. With relaxant yung recommended, ma'am. Tibang. Yung, pwede kasing, since meron kasing intermittent apnea dyan, ma'am, tapos yung magpapalit-palit ng tube, magsa-stop, yung if we use, pwede naman, ma'am, but if we use gas lang, pwede kasing makapollute pa ng OR suite, kasi hindi niya ma-reach yung, pwede kang, hindi ganun ka-deep yung plane ng anesthesia mo. Yes, ma'am, exactly. Then, unlike if TIVA, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Ito po yung video nung... So yan, yung mag-resect pa lang sila ng... Ayan. And then they put a sterility tube dun sa distal part and then inflate that, connect that to the mech vent. So yun yung basically ventilate dun sa patient while they resect the upper part which is the occluded area. Then after that, after taking out that part, parang they do retrograde. For this case, they did a retrograde intubation, ma'am. So nagpasok sila ng parang bronchoscope din. Tapos parang ginawa nilang bougie. Yung tube gagawin nila pabalik. Hahatangin nila pababa. Yung tube. Yung original ET tube. Tanggalin nila yung nilagay nila na sterile and then reconnect to anastomosis. And that's basically procedure. Yes, ma'am. Hinila nila pababa na ulit, ma'am, yung original tube. Ayun po.
There's too much deviation that we're basing about that.
Yes, ma'am. Yun. So that is the open airway and cross-field ventilation. So, yun po. Once the airway is open, ventilation is provided across the surgical field. These can be done for proximal and mid-brachial resections, pwede rin po for carinaal resections. So, So next to maintenance, the other important part of brachial resection, which us anesthesiologists should look out for, is the extubation and emergence. Oh, so this process should be smooth and efficient. Potentially, this is the most critical period of the entire process. So extubation is always the primary goal, since post-operative mechanical ventilation is associated with 90% of anastomotic failure. Neuromuscular blocking agents needs to be reversed and out of the system and confirmed with a nerve stimulator. If PIVA is used, it can be stopped a few minutes prior to emergence to allow for a predictable, rapid, and controlled emergence at an appropriate time. The same goes if volatile anesthetics were used. Small doses of opioids may be given about around 15 minutes before the end to optimize the analgesia and post-op pain. And all antiemetics should be administered to decrease the incidence of post-op nausea and vomiting. So this one po, immediately following extubation, phonation should be elicited to exclude a recurrent laryngeal nerve problem. So some would actually look, while extubating po, some surgeons would actually request na makita po natin na gumagalaw yung vocal cords bago ma-extubate. So yun po. That's why they want it to be fully reversed before extubation. And then, the patient needs to be kept as comfortable as possible and his neck maintained in a fixed flexed position at all times. So to assist with head flexion, a guardian or sentinel stitch, which we can see sa lower picture, this is placed between the side of the skin of the chin and the anterior chest to achieve head flexion at 35 degrees. This stitch, which is kept in place for at least 6 to 10 days, usually 7 to 14 here at our institution. This serves as a reminder to the patient not to extend the neck to avoid traction of the anastomosis. Surprisingly, this is well tolerated by patients naman po. Pero kasi meron silang yung yung orthopedic corset. Opo. NG. Tapos meron din pong orthopedic corset. I'm not sure if we have in this institution, ma'am. But yung ginawa po kasi ng PCBS, parang gumawa sila ng sarili nila. Parang mga, parang nakaganon lang yung patient. Yeah. So usually, reintubation naman rarely is ever required, and if all anesthetic goals of emergence have been met, hindi naman po daw magiging problem yung airway. But there are still cases which reintubation are done. So if magganito po, securing the airway is of primary importance and it should be done promptly. Special care needs to be taken so as not to put extra tension dun sa tracheal anastomosis. For cases naman, ma'am, meron pa rin naman daw kaya ng direct laryngoscopy. But, yes, ma'am. But yung sinasabi po nila through most references is immediate flexible bronchoscope na po. And then, dapat smaller diameter in tubes as small as 5 daw po. 5. So as not to put tension din sa anastomotic site, and to, since most likely the area would be edematous, ma'am. Parang na daw mapuncture pa. So for the post-operative considerations, even if the patient is extubated, still for ICU admission or a high care facility, constant assessment of the pattern and effort of breathing are required to detect problems with the reconstructed airway. Clinical evaluation is supplemented with periodic ABGs. Aggressive pulmonary toilet is instituted very early. And also, we should also check if the patient is really comfortable with the position. Since fixed flex position po kasi siya for around 2 weeks. Pain management is imperative to keep levels of anxiety as low as possible. And the development of stridor or any other evidence of airway obstruction may indicate a problem with the reconstructed segment. If there is something found sa airway anastomosis, it would be better if airway portion is done. Since this is the only reliable way to address the problem. So still, equipments for intubation must be kept ready, and to look out for laryngeal edema, another important complication which can present as stridor or hoarseness. So for the pain control, we can give IV anesthetics, IV meds, epidural, intrapleural analgesia, or blocks for this patient. Yes, ma'am. To prevent edema din, ma'am. We can also give Prismic epinephrine, ma'am, for the edema. Yes, ma'am. Wala po, ma'am. Sila po, ma'am. Sila, ma'am. Ano ito, ma'am? Si Shai. That is all. So, for my references. Any more questions?